program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
As the darkness gives way to the light, slowly the tracks of a king are revealed. This is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning everybody and welcome to a beautiful sunrise safari. The sun is just coming up and as you can see we have male lion tracks to follow. Now my name is Tristan. On camera this morning I've got Senzo, and so we are going to try and see if we can't find where this male lion went. Thank you to all of you that sent through your information about the male lion being at the dam and the leopard sawing. It certainly has helped us get onto these tracks quite quickly. So remember, you the viewers are the most important, and so you can send through any more information that you have as to where this lion went from the dam, or if you have any questions about Africa in general, on #SafariLive. Right, let's get into our tracking as soon as possible, because these male lions, the Birminghams, they like to come into this area and they seem to like to Houdini in and out. So while we've got a bit of time and it's not too light just yet, I'm hoping that this male lion hasn't moved too far. But knowing the Birminghams and knowing the way that they can move, it's very possible that these guys have gotten, well, this particular male lion, who I think is the Birmingham, has gotten quite far away already. So I want to try and quickly just check where these tracks end up going. Now, the tracks that I have got came down towards the dam and seem to be heading in a westerly direction. So like I say, if there's anybody out there that actually saw where this male lion went from the dam, remember #SafariLive. Other than that, I think Taylor's going to try and give me a hand and see if she can't just do the northern sections, see if there isn't any sign of lions up that way. There was also that leopard that was sawing away, I believe, in the early hours of the morning, and I know Taylor is very keen to see a leopard, so she's going to, while she does that, just check around for any signs of leopard as well. So it has an air of promise, and it does on the dam cam. It means it's very exciting for us to get going in the morning. There's a sort of hope and a atmosphere of something could be around any corner, which is fantastic. And it will make a good way. It would be a great way to start the day to have a male lion. I can't remember actually the last time I saw a lion on Djuma. It was a very long time ago, and so I'm hoping that we do have one of the Birminghams. Now, I know there was a lion that was also calling around 12 o'clock-ish. So I would imagine that this is that same lion. It was calling kind of to the east of the camp, so where these tracks have come from seems that they've come from that way. Now I just need to see where they go from here, because it seems like they just disappear from the dam. Don't see anything going that way. Maybe they head southwards. Now just looking to see if there is any sign of this male, but I don't see any tracks coming south from the dam itself, so he must have headed on west towards Quarantine. So I'll just loop back up towards Quarantine. I didn't see anything when I came down this morning, but it was still very, very dark, and to see tracks in the dark of night is really quite tough. It's not easy, especially for just one male lion walking along, and so we might have missed them. But I'm going to head back that way and just quickly have a little look and check what's going on. Other than that, it's a beautiful morning. It's surprisingly quite warm this morning. I actually don't feel too cold at all. I thought it would be a little bit cooler than when I was last year, but it's actually not too bad. It's starting to kind of get to, just as that sun rises, you know, you get that little sort of bite in the air and it gets a little bit cooler, but it's actually not too bad at all. It's quite pleasant out here, and it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. There's not a cloud in the sky at the moment. It's just bare sky all above me here, which is really quite nice. So as you can see there's not a single cloud anywhere to be seen. our male lion definitely didn't come south from the dam itself. So like I say, if you did see it, then maybe you can let me know as to which way it went. Okay, so you're saying the lion went northeast from the dam wall. Well, we'll definitely check that out. Like I say, Taylor is north of where I am, so I'm going to let her just check around Galago's side. I think I'm going to head a little bit further east of where she is and see if maybe it didn't go up towards Buffelshoek Dam. Now, the problem is when male lions go northeast from the dam, it's actually not a very long walk at all until they get to the Buffelshoek boundary. So I'm hoping that something has distracted him and he's ended up lying down somewhere, but it's not that encouraging when they head north. If they head west or east or even south, then it's a lot easier for us to be able to try and see if we can't find him. So hopefully he'll pop out somewhere close by and we'll be able to see where he is. And like I say, Taylor is on that side, and so I'm sure she'll pick up the tracks if it does head that way. But I haven't seen any sign of the leopard either. I don't know if anybody actually saw it on the dam cam or if it was just the sawing that happened. But I haven't seen any signs or footprints for a leopard yet either. So that'll be quite interesting to see where that was coming from and who indeed that was, because yesterday we had those tracks for the mating pair, and so it would be interesting if maybe that's potentially that male that's come this way. Just looking here, I thought I saw somewhere where something was lying on the road, but it could just be the elephant footprints. There are a few tracks for elephants that have been going up and down. I'm sure it's that same herd that Jamie had yesterday afternoon. We're not too far from where Jamie had that herd, and they look like a delightful bunch. We were watching the clip when we got back to camp, and it was really quite entertaining to watch that poor little baby trying to struggle to get up the bank and try and rejoin its mom. So for those of you who had missed it, it was a herd of elephants that Jamie was with, and this little baby got stuck in the riverbed, and the mother on top of him, the baby was trying to get up, but it kept trying to climb the steepest bank possible, and two of its siblings were not helping in any way whatsoever. Now, I think there are some tracks here, I just need to see. Okay, so we have, there we go, there's tracks for our leopard and lion are both here. Now I'm going to try to see if I can't find a track where you can see the size difference between these two, because it's quite interesting to see. Let's go back here a little bit. Senzo, this is going to be quite tough for you because it's very close, but let's try. Okay, so over here, I don't know if you can get that, Senzo. Is that going to be okay? Where the light is, oof, I think the car is going to be a bit close. Let's just try and reposition. I've got a big bush on my left hand side which is not making this easy, but let's try. Alright, so I believe a lot of you are saying that this line went northwest, not northeast. Okay, well that's great news. We'll try and see what we can find. But at the back there, again, sorry Senzo, it's not really good, is it? Let's try find another one. Ah, there it is. That's a better one there. Okay, so where my light is, if we have a look, it's very difficult to see. So I'm going to get out and circle it for you. But there is a leopard track there in amongst all of that, which is almost impossible to see. But let me go and show you. So it's interesting to see now who this could be, because it looks like a female leopard, and there was a leopard calling. Now I know there's not very much light, but I just want to circle it because it's going to make it much easier to see, and then I will find you the male lion track as well. But let's get a bit of light onto that, and we'll be able to then see it a little bit better now, I think. There we go. Okay, so you can see the back of the pad, just where the light is touching there, and then the toes coming forward. Now, I'm just trying to see nicely. It's actually, now that I see it, it looks a little bit more male than female. So that's a front foot for a male leopard. And then the male lion was a little bit further ahead, walking up the road, but that one's not very clear. So I'm going to try and find a better example of all of this, because the light is not very good, and it's very difficult to actually show you the difference between the two. But at least we're heading the right direction. It means that we're heading the way that the leopard is heading. Taylor's heading the way that the lions are heading, so we're all getting everything covered at this stage, which is great news. Now I wonder where this leopard went to and who this could be. There's a few Francolins that are alarm calling and sounding a little bit upset in this area, so I wonder if maybe this leopard hasn't disturbed everybody. Let's see if it didn't cross. We're just going to go check down towards Chelapan, because Chelapan is often a nice place for the leopards to go. And then if you head towards Twin Dams, we know that most of our leopards like to go that area. So Tingana, Hosana, Shongile, they're all happy to head into that area. And so maybe, just maybe, this leopard is somewhere at one of these pans having an early morning drink. Francolins on my left keep going and calling. They're not too flustered, but they're making a little bit of an alarm call, so I'll bear that in mind. I just want to check if the tracks come out further ahead. If they do, then we know that this leopard has already passed. If not, then I'm going to go back to where those Francolins are alarm calling and just see if maybe there's something in that riverbed there. The problem with where they are calling at the moment is that it is very, very dense, very, very thick, and it's not an easy place to negotiate. So I'm just going to try and see if I can't find the tracks further on. And I should probably plug myself in back into the car, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to hear Alice one bit, and then she's going to shout at me. So let me plug myself back in. There we go. Now I should be able to hear the voices inside my head again, which will make Final Control much happier. So, someone from Australia, you're saying, is it only lion and leopard that give away territorial signs? I think that was the question that came through. Male leopards, no. So, it's not only male leopards that will soar. You'll find that female leopards will soar quite regularly as well. And now, a female leopard, the reason why she would soar is, I suppose, a territorial sound. If she feels like there's another female in that area, she could potentially soar. But it's more to do with finding a mate. So you'll find a female leopard, when she's looking for a male leopard to mate with, she'll make quite a lot of noise to attract the attention of that male and try and get him to notice that she's around and then head into that direction. So it does happen that they will soar quite a bit. They do definitely scent mark like a male leopard would do, and make quite a bit of sort of display that they are in the area. I'm just checking very carefully now if I can't see where this leopard went. The road here is incredibly hard, and it's not easy to see these tracks in this dingy morning light. The sun hasn't come up yet, so we don't have too many shadows being cast onto the road, and that makes it a lot harder to actually see what's going on. So I'm just trying to check. Now, unfortunately, I mentioned earlier that Taylor will be checking the northern side. Apparently she's not feeling very well at all, so we're going to have to wish Taylor a speedy recovery, and so instead we're going to have the Mr. James Henry that's going to be joining us. So while that all happens, you're going to be with me, and we're going to carry on and see what else we can find. Now I hear there is a bit of chatter on the radio, so I'm going to just listen quickly to what's happening there so that I can hear if they've managed to pick up on anything. I seem to leopard tracks, which means one thing and one thing only, is that maybe, just maybe, those Francolins that we heard alarming just now could be leading us to some.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Apparently Tristan disappeared off your screens in mid-sentence, for which we do apologise. It seems as though he had an attack of the gremlins. My name is Jamie, and this morning Ferg is on camera with me, and it is a truly beautiful morning, but because it is winter and our days are getting shorter, we had to sit and wait for it to get light. Sitting outside, Taylor was out, Tristan was out, and we just had to sit and wait for our chance. Because obviously, you don't go stumbling around in the bush at night or in the dark on foot. Exciting stuff planned for my morning's sunrise bushwalk. Obviously, we're starting off with our Wildebeest and our herd of Impala on the open area outside of camp, just because they've become, well, basically part of our lives. We see them each and every single day. The Wildebeest herd wandering about, the Impala. But I'm not interested in the Wildebeest today. No, not that I'm not interested. But my plan for the morning, because I think the hyenas have moved their den, is to go and check the older den sites and to see if we can work out where they might be. And even if I eliminate a couple of possibilities, Aubrey's, Galago, Mvubu, all of the places where I know our spotted hyena have been in the past, then at least we have a rough idea as to where to start looking from the vehicles. The signs that we're looking for, well, I'll explain those to you once we get out and about and once we get to one of the old den sites, and we can discuss whether or not those cubs have moved there. I had a brief check on my way through, just driving from where I live to the main camp, and I saw lots and lots and lots of hyena tracks. I don't know if any of you heard anything on the dam camera last night. I know that you saw a leopard, and I know that you saw a lion, but maybe if you saw any hyena, it might also be quite a useful giveaway as to where they might have moved. And as we stroll along, don't forget to send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you all. Obviously, walking out here in the bush, we've got to be very alert, which I can't always give devote my full attention to while I'm talking to you and while I've got this earpiece in so that you can ask questions. So as usual, we're accompanied by the wonderful Herbie, who is chatting, I think, to Tristan, would be my guess. There's Herbie over there, and Herbie does a marvelous job. Herbie does a marvelous job of looking after us, walking ahead of us to make sure that we're not going to walk into something scary, but also using his amazing talent for spotting the small thing, which is, the small things are half the fun of a morning bushwalk. Ferg, I think we need to walk faster. It's chilly. It's chilly. Violet is wondering about her namesake flower and whether or not we have any African violets growing out here in the wild. We do. I haven't seen any in a while. I've seen lots and lots of hibiscus flowers. I have seen lots of wild jasmine, but I have not seen any African violets growing at the moment. But if I find one for you, Violet, I will show you. I promise you that I will show you. But yes, we do get them in this area, and I have seen them in the past. So that's something that we could aim to try and find for Violet. That's a lovely idea. Violet, now I'm starting to drag myself in circles here. Is a violet your favorite flower? I would assume so. I would guess, surely it must be. Or would you rather not be limited to what your favorite flower might be? I don't know that I have a favorite flower. Okay. I'll stand very still. Oh, I see. Alice is talking to Tristan, not to us. I can tell you where we are, Alice. I can't tell you where Tristan is. I had a momentary panic attack thinking our signal was very low right outside right on quarantine. I know, Fergus was standing there going, no, weird, what's going on? Alright. Dearie me, Alice, wrong radio. Grand lover, you want to know how often we find pangolin. Although actually probably our best chance would be on foot. It's the only time I've ever found a pangolin is on foot. But how often do we see them? We've seen one once in the last 2 years, since I've started working at Safari Live. And that wasn't even me. That was Brent and Dave on the Kruger National Park boundary. They're around. They're very, very difficult to find. Now, pangolin, for our newer viewers, is a scaly anteater, basically. It looks like a walking artichoke. And they're very, very rare. They're also very endangered. And probably one of the most trafficked animals in the world for the use of their scales in medicine. Obviously, there's absolutely no truth behind that. It's just keratin. But it's a really sweet little thing that curls up into a ball when it feels threatened, and actually very little is known about them in terms of their social structure. We know the babies ride on the mother's backs, we know that they're solitary, we know that they eat pugnacious ants, and we know that they are largely nocturnal. But the nice thing about this time of year, because it's chilly, this time in the morning and in the early afternoon, you've got a much better chance during our winter months of seeing something like a pangolin. And the one and only time I personally have ever found a pangolin and not responded to another one, I was tracking leopard, it was years ago now, tracking a leopard, and something rustled next to me, and I sort of walked past, looked, saw what it was, walked a little bit further, and no, it was very exciting. I did such a mad sprint back to the vehicle to get my guests to it, and then lost it for a while. Had a panic, then realized it was still there, exactly where I'd left it, just hidden. And they like to, if they do feel like you've spotted them, they like to move into dense areas like this. I'm not going in there, it's dewy. My legs are already soaking wet from walking on quarantine. But the pangolin will go and it'll tuck itself away in there and then curl up into a ball and it'll stay completely still. You never know. We could see a pangolin. We could easily see a pangolin, and it'll be when we least expect it, like it was with Brent, where Rebecca got such a surprise that she asked me to link to an armadillo. I thought she meant an armored lizard. There was mass confusion. Either way, it was a very, very, very exciting moment. I would love to find a pangolin. I'll ask Herbie. We know how determined Herbie gets when you ask him to find something. Maybe he can help us. Apparently, there's a pangolin that walks. I can't find an armadillo for you, Rebecca. Apparently, there's a pangolin that walks on Gowrie, or used to walk on Gowrie Cutline, and they'd find his tracks all the time. But a pangolin track, basically, I'll show you when it's a bit sunnier, because you're not going to see it now. It's basically just, you can barely see any toes, you can barely see any detail. It looks for all the world like just a nondescript impression in the sand. So tracking them down is not all that easy. But I would suspect if we found one, if we could learn the habits of one, we'd have far more luck. I think we're going to learn a lot more about pangolins in the future with researchers following them about in the evenings. I wouldn't want to follow a pangolin at night on foot, but there are researchers that do it, and I take my hat off to them. I won't take my hat off because that's where my microphone is, but I would take my hat off to them if I could. The reason we're walking on the road, hey, it's dewy, but that's not the actual reason. It's because I want to check for hyena tracks on this road, and I haven't seen any, which suggests to me there's been a lot of traffic up and down already, but it suggests to me that they're not using that Gallagher shortcut den yet. I don't know, it's possible. When they do use that den, or the Mvubu Road den, they use a game path that goes through this way. Now, Nevin, one thing that would be really nice to find is the little pitter-patter of tiny little feet, or the little tracks of tiny little hyenas. But Nevin wants to know, how do they move their cubs? Do they carry them or do they walk with them? Combination of both. If the cubs are starting to lag, then they will pick them up. But at the age that those cubs are now, which is a couple of months, I can't remember exactly how old they are now, time flies, but they're probably about 3 months old now. They're ready to walk. They're ready to walk on their own. So Mom will basically call them, and typically when we see Mom leave the den site, you can see how much the cubs want to go with her, but then she's got to sort of guide them back, and eventually that instinct to stay overcomes and they go back to the den site itself. But if Mom's moving them, she'll call them and they'll walk with her. Obviously it's a dangerous time for a hyena cub. They're still not at their most coordinated. They're not all that fast either. So anything like a lion, particularly a lion, maybe a leopard, but unlikely. But a lion would be the biggest threat, and a lion would be something that Ribbon would be the most nervous of. But she'll do it alone, not necessarily with the assistance of the clan, but she will do it. You got a pretty sunrise there.
We do have a pretty sunrise.
We do. That's wonderful. Make tracking a lot easier. And even more wonderful is a gentle whistle from Herbie telling me he spotted something. I'm going to... Sorry, Ferg. I know you want to film the sunrise, but there's stuff to be... just walking away from Fergus. Oof, rutting Impala. Making a noise. For our new viewers, it's Impala breeding season. So they are making lots and lots of noise at the moment. Right, let me see if I can find what Herbie's found without being told what Herbie's found. What did you see, Herbs? Ooh. Okay, we're going to do some investigating. So I'm going to send you over to Tristan while I do some thinking and some looking, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Well, we're still trying to find where these leopard tracks go, but interestingly enough, I came down towards Twin Dams just to check if maybe this leopard hadn't come all the way down, and I couldn't find any further tracks for the male, but I have found tracks for what looks like Shongile. Now, it's a little young, or it's a small female leopard that's moving around on the sort of boundary area, so I'm just trying to see which way she goes from here and whether she then goes south into Little Gowrie or is still inside Djuma. But at this stage, her tracks are going down towards sort of Twin Dams area, and unfortunately our reception down there is not very good at all, so I'm going to try and just head a little bit further north from where I am now to try and just see if I can't find her a little bit further north, but I think she might have gone towards Twin Dam side. I did drive there and I didn't see any tracks for her there, so maybe, just maybe, she's somewhere close by here and just we get lucky and she'll pop out of the grass for us. The tracks I had were on the road here going the opposite direction to me, so I would imagine that she's gone down towards Twin Dam. She loves it down there, it's one of her favorite places, so if I don't have any luck here I might head back that way again and just see. The problem with her is that she likes to sort of twist and turn. Now, see, there's some tracks here that I just want to have a look at quickly. It looks like she turned around and is now heading back. So I just want to see, but there's her little tracks for those of you that would like to see. So over here, Senzo, I don't know if you can see them there, just on the edge of the road. There we go. So there's the little footprints on the edge of the road. So over here, 1 and 2, that are moving along slowly. If you go back a little bit, Senzo, I think you'll have more luck with the ones further back because they're a little bit more defined. So the other way. So Nell from USA, you want to know how old a leopard female would be when she starts to mate. Well, it depends on the female. You get different ages for different females, and Karula was one that mated very, very early in life. So she was already producing cubs at 2.5 years, which is very early. Normally it's around 3 to 4 years old when they have their first litter. So that's about the normal age, but you will find sometimes that females can already start to mate at around 2.5 years, which is really, really early. Now, I thought I heard something there, so I was just stopping and listening. There is a car that's coming past, but I thought I maybe heard a lion contact calling. It's quite difficult when there's a car driving past you because you can't hear anything anymore, but no, I can't hear anything. Sorry, Alice, if you can repeat that. I was busy listening out for our lion. So, while Taylor is in bed and sick, James Henry is now in, so he would like to say good morning to all of you, so let's bid him a very, very, very
good morning, hello, yes. How are you? I hope you're all well. I'm still slightly sort of shocked. You know, I wasn't expecting to be on drive today, so I'm just sort of preparing myself mentally. My name is James Hendry. There we go. And David is on camera today. Hashtag Safari Live is how you're going to get hold of us. Of course, you know that because Jamie and Tristan have told you that. There is the first glorious sighting of the morning. This, the 10th of May, 2017, Anno Domini, or the Common Era, depending on your bent. Now Taylor is returned to her bed. Geraldine is ministrating to her. She is providing some sweet tea and a comforting ear. And so, with any luck, she'll be absolutely fine by the end of the drive. In the meantime, the Wildebeest are making their way very gently down towards the north, where we are sort of going to follow them. Well, we're not going to follow them. We're going to head off. We're going to check Gallagher Pan, check the dam. Oh, David, what happened there? That looks like teenage experimentation to me. That is not uncommon, everyone. That does happen from time to time, in just about all species, as does that, of course. That happens in all animals. Thank you very much, David, for that. Beautiful sighting. It is when an animal that is at its most vulnerable like that, David, and so you should really avoid pointing the camera at them. Anyway, let's move on to the first thing that we saw. And that is a sort of play and dominance behavior. And of course, there is this school of thought that goes that all mammal play behavior eventually has something to do with assigning a role in the social hierarchy of whatever pack or herd or troop you happen to be in. Really, the light is quite gorgeous. It's quite a chilly morning, early winter's morning. It's pretty normal. I think it's probably, if I was to guess, I'll just quickly suck the temperature out of my finger. I'd say it's probably about 18 degrees Celsius or so, which must put us at around about 65 Fahrenheit. And apparently I was spot on there. That's fantastic. My finger is working really well this morning. Now, David, you are somebody who likes to keep what might be described as European hours. Shall we say that? You know, the early morning is not necessarily your immediate preference. And I've just spotted an animal that would keep very similar hours to what you would keep. Can you see it there, just in front of us? Yes, there it is. There it is, just coming out to catch the first rays of the sun, a little dwarf mongoose. Now, they do not like to get up early. They like to get up only as the sun is warming their little burrows. And so that's what the sun is doing now. Which is actually really cool. We're about to watch the sun just break onto the top of the mound. And the first little mongoose came out. And of course, unlike David, they go to bed quite early as well. David did not go to bed early last night, did you, David? No. Which resulted in my not going to bed particularly early either. It's all right. You know, the sound of joyful laughter outside my room until late into the evening is one shouldn't be a curmudgeon about these things. Do you know what a curmudgeon is, David? I am a curmudgeon. A ruiner of fun. Yes, there are a number of them. There's a whole troop. They're all underneath the ground in their little termite mound that is no longer filled with termites. I always think that they live, other than the fact, of course, that they're small enough for just about absolutely anything to eat, I feel that they live lives of great comfort, and I wouldn't mind being a dwarf mongoose were it not for the fact that there were so many birds and other mammals that would like to eat me. That's very sweet, as they've just perfectly predicted when the sun's going to hit the top of their mound. Hello, Kimmy Ann. You're wondering about meerkats and whether these mongoose are related to meerkats. Well, indeed they are, Kimmy Ann. A meerkat is a mongoose. It's just a different kind of a mongoose. They're part of the same family, the Herpestidae. I keep getting that wrong. Herpestidae, which I think probably means snake eater, although in the case of the mongoose is not always very true, or this mongoose. But the meerkat lives only, or surrogate lives only in much drier regions, so you probably find that they almost are an ecological replacement in areas where it's just slightly drier than this. So if you go up into the southern parts of Botswana, you'll find there's a huge amount, or there's a lot less rain there, about 100 millimeters or so less, and from there and into the drier regions you'll find the meerkats. Now Tristan has managed to do what I and everyone else has failed to do for the last 5 or 6 days.
We have indeed, James, and isn't this spectacular? There is the little prince sitting atop a treehouse dam wall. So little Hosana, whose tracks I found just after we last were with you, and his were going north. So it seems like him and Shongile were together, and Shongile's tracks headed back towards Twin Dams, and his came north up Weaver's Nest, and I was pretty sure that he might head this way. So we came towards to Treehouse Dam, and look at that, he's lying right out in the open, just surveying his territory and watching over his waterhole. He loves this particular area. I've seen Hosana here countless times. He loves to sit atop the dam wall and watch what goes on at the waterhole, and there's lots of terrapins and varying other things that occupy his mind here, and so it's a good place for him to come and see. It's also a place where Karula used to bring them quite often, and so he's quite at home with being in this area. But it is such a sight to see him in this beautiful early morning light, and he's just sitting there looking ever so regal. Is he getting massive as well? Look at the size of his head and his neck these days. He's getting huge. When we first came down, I thought it might be an adult female, but he's already gotten much bigger. It's such a beautiful cat. And he's looking so healthy. I'm very, very impressed. He's obviously completely unscathed from his little encounter with Tingana the other night. So for those of you who aren't aware, he had a Impala kill close to Vuatela camp. And Tingana came in and there was a bit of a scuffle, I believe, and there was sort of sounds of them getting into an argument. But he looks absolutely fine. He's got a very healthy coat. There's no signs of any scratches or scars or cuts anywhere around there. So he's looking spectacular at this stage. And look at that coat. He's got such a rich golden coat. You'd often find this with male leopards, is that they'll end up getting a much more sort of gold color than what the females do. The females are often a little bit lighter, but his coat in this morning light is exquisite. Now, I believe a lot of you are very happy to see little Hosana, and I am too. It's been a while since I've seen him, and he looks incredible. He's looking much bigger than when the last time I saw him. So really, really glad that we've managed to find him, and hopefully we'll be able to spend most of the morning with him. I would imagine as that sun now starts to rise, it's going to get warm on his back, and that might get him up and moving. And maybe we'll see him trying to hunt some terrapins around Treehouse Dam, but it promises to be such a good morning, and I'm so excited that we managed to find him. I was saying to Senzo, there's leopard tracks everywhere this morning, and they've been walking up and down, and so it's nice that we actually were able to find him and got lucky that he was sitting right out in the open, and he is posing beautifully. Now, I think I might just reposition just now. The problem is the sun is behind him, so if we go down towards the water, it's going to be difficult to be able to actually see him. But we're going to try and see if I can't get a better view so we can actually see his face. Oh, hello, Hosana. Good morning. Isn't he beautiful? You're looking a bit dopey this morning, my boy. But he is getting so big, and he's got that typical sort of Karula male offspring look. They all look quite similar to me. So Mishu and Duna, Shavambala and Quarantine, Kunuma, they've all got that very kind of boxy face. Absolutely beautiful. Now, we are going to spend most of the morning, like I said, with this male leopard and see what he gets up to. And while we do that, I believe Jamie's got something slightly more delicate to show all of you.
I do indeed have something more delicate to show you in the form of a sunrise, and I guess you could describe it as delicate because no two sunrises are ever the same, and it's so transient and gone in just a few seconds. and highlighted by the gorgeous yellow flowers of the senna. It really is a very pretty combination. So it's an utterly stunning morning, and what a wonderful start. I know Tristan is going to be grinning from ear to ear as soon as he gets back for breakfast. I know he's going to be so excited. There's nothing that Tristan loves more than to find a young male leopard, or any leopard actually. We've had, let me just tell you what we found so that we can try and make sense of it. I'm not going to try and give you any explanation. The thing that Herbie whistled at me to tell me about was an old female leopard track, about 2 days old. Adult, looks like an adult female. It's hard to tell because it's so old, and it's in such soft sand that it's spread a little bit. In the middle of Djuma, don't know. Looks like an adult female. Could be Karula, we don't know. It could be one of the other females wandering in, taking over a vacant portion of the territory, because Karula hasn't been calling and hasn't been scent marking as far as we know. I don't know. Make of it what you will. I'll just let you know that that's what we found. I'm hopeful. Let's see how it plays out over the next few days, because if there's been a female walking there once, let's see whether or not she comes back. Now, speaking of leopards, of course, Karula, I think you should head back across and see her son, who is sitting up in the sun.
So Hosana isn't that beautiful? He's being backlit by this early morning rising sun, and the grass is catching all of that light and the edge of his coat, and he looks so beautiful up on this damn wall. It's such a nice image watching him, just watching and seeing what's going on. Now he has stood up and he's looking around, so I don't think he's going to be there for too much longer. He might give us a big yawn. Oh, what have you seen, Hosana? Seems like he's going into a bit of a stalk mode. You can see he's very interested in something. His ears have perked forward, his head is lowered slightly, and he's looking as though he's a lot more aware of something. I wonder if maybe there isn't something that's approaching the waterhole. You sometimes will find at this time of the day that some of the animals like impalas and kudu will come and have an early morning drink, and I wonder if maybe one of them is not on its way that he's noticed, because he's definitely gone into a sort of stalking posture where he's watching very carefully. See, look, he's now slinking off. Oh, no, big yawn. Full image with the light coming through the grass. Amazing. Hello, my boy. He's looking so good. And look, his tummy looks quite full as well. He doesn't look as though he's too skinny. So he's definitely taken to being a solitary cat very, very well. Now we are going to try and reposition because he's gone behind us and through a big, thick bush. I wonder where he's off to, because this is exactly the same way he got here. He walked in the exact same route. So I think maybe he's going to head now down towards Twin Dams. So let's see. He's busy bounding away through the long grass, as Hosana often does. Now it's quite interesting that every time that I've seen him here and he comes this way, he takes this little shortcut and then he's going to pop out in front of us. And this is where we had him the other day, where he was stalking that scrub hare and he got so close to the scrub hare and ended up missing it. I don't know why he actually didn't even jump towards the scrub hare. It was so close, but he ended up kind of fluffing it and missing the scrub hare. But it's the same exact movement that he makes. Now I lost him here somewhere, but he must be close by. There he is. Where are you going, Hosana? Now, while we try and keep up with this leopard and see where he goes to, go back across to James and see what his plans are for the morning, and see whether or not he's had any luck finding a spotted or rather large cat, for that matter.
My plans have not changed. We are approaching now Galago Pan. We're hoping that the leopard tracks that Herbert found were on the end of a leopard that was walking extremely slowly, and that it has taken 2 days to arrive at the Galago Pan, and so with any luck we'll pick it up as it arrives there. Maybe. From his fight with his daddy, and quite possibly his sister. And I suspect the tracks that Herbie had are hers. And remember when she went missing, no, not missing, but we hadn't seen her for a few days, and Herbert and I went walking in here. We found her sort of lurking in amongst these drainage lines where it's almost impossible to go with the vehicle. We had a lovely sighting of her on foot. So she could easily be spending time in there, especially as the hyenas don't seem to be around that area, and nor do the lions. So we'll drive very slowly through here. And you know, quite often, in the last few days, I've been in the tent. There's a big bird up there, David. I've been in the tent in the afternoons, and just as the sun's kind of gone down, it started to get dark. There's been an irritation from the birds. No, not that one, David. It's that vast thing sitting on the tree over there, and you see it there. There we are. It's a brown snake eagle, everyone. I'm quite impressed that you saw the minuscule thing that you filmed, David. I didn't know what that was. It was too small. Alright, this one's now following the same path. See if you can track it. There it goes. And what I think you probably wouldn't have picked up as that bird flew was the alarm call of a number of birds in the understory as it flew past. Very nice. Now the brown snake eagle, of course, is an eater of snakes, brown and otherwise, but it will also eat little birds, it will eat other reptiles, it will eat small mammals, like those mongoose. And so all small things must watch out when the brown snake eagle in his beady yellow eye is flying around the sky. You like how I did that, David? I didn't mean to, it just happened by mistake. It was a random rhyme. Alrighty. I've forgotten what I was waffling about before that. Okay, we'll pop around the corner here, see what we can find at the pan. While we do that, I believe that Jamie is behaving much like the first little carnivore I showed you this morning.
That is exactly what I'm doing, and I'm probably doing it for exactly the same reason that Hosana is doing it. I'm basking. I'm basking in the sun on a termite mound. Unfortunately, it's not an active termite mound. That's what I was hoping, because at this time of year, you can really feel the heat coming up from the vents, and actually finding yourself a nice place like this, it's basically like having underfloor heating, which is amazing, because that's what a termite mound is. It's a ventilation system, so all of the hot air from inside the termite mound itself. And remember that this is just the tip of the iceberg. What you're seeing is just a small portion of this entire termite colony's home. The rest of it's underground, and they create these chimneys to control the internal temperature, so to let the hot air out. Now, usually sitting here is a really good idea because it's nice and warm, but unfortunately the termites are not around in this particular termite mound. Sometimes you see hornbills doing it as well. Hornbills go and they sit on the entrance to the chimney, and they sit there in the freezing cold, and you can see on a really cold morning you can actually see the steam rising. It's not that cold this morning, but it is a really useful trick to warm up, and it's great for guests to show them how much heat is actually being released by the termite mound itself. And they've got to keep it a constant temperature. Right, I'm not going to be lazy the whole morning, I promise. They've got to keep it at a constant temperature because they're farming fungus below the surface of the soil. The fungus helps to break down the plant material that they bring it, and to farm it they have to sort of cultivate it at a certain optimum temperature, which is somewhere around the mid-30s in centigrade. Can't get too hot or else the fungus won't survive. So the termites have very cleverly worked out a ventilation system that would make most engineers very jealous. I've just spotted something. It's caused me to get up and relinquish my warm sunny spot and to go walking through the dewy grass. Seen lots of it around. This, that looks a little bit like wild cotton. This is milkweed. Milkweed is the very toxic plant that monarch butterfly caterpillars feed off. Obviously it explodes like this when it's time for the seeds to disperse. It has a colloquial South African name in Afrikaans, that describes the... It's a very, very descriptive name for the way in which the fruits form. But I'm not going to tell you any more about that because I'm going to send you back across to Hosana, who I'm sure is looking beautiful this morning.
He is indeed. He's just come up onto a little fallen log and he is posing perfectly. And he's busy scratching, getting those claws nice and sharp, generally being a little hooligan. And now back into the long grass we go. So every now and then he's giving us these beautiful visuals where he jumps up onto something, and other than that he seems to be moving quite quickly through the grass. And it's been interesting to watch him because Hosana is probably one of the most relaxed leopards that I've dealt with as a small young male, and generally young males can be quite shy, but this morning seems a little bit sort of wary. He's walking quite quickly away from the vehicle when it starts, and then he starts to kind of calm down once it follows him for a little bit, but he's showing sort of more and more that he's aware of the fact that he's now under sort of threat, that mom is not around. You can see that he's a little bit more wary of what's going on around him, and that's probably because of that incident he had with Tingana. He knows now that Tingana is starting to see him in a bit of a different light. It's no longer sort of this male leopard that's tolerant of his presence. He's now getting into a situation where Tingana is starting to see him as more of a threat, and so that's why he'll be a little bit more cautious about what's going on and keep his distance from certain things like the vehicles, just in case they come out. Now I'm going to try and see if we can't find a better place because he's gone behind a tree there, as you can see. Let's just try to see if we can't position ourselves slightly better. But that was very nice of him to go on this big fallen log here. It was perfect place with that morning sunshine on his golden coat. So special. Now I'm hoping, because we are moving slowly in a southeasterly direction, it would be nice if he joins up with Shongile. Just going to try and negotiate this big thicket. So you can see he's a little bit kind of wary. He keeps trotting off a little bit as we get sort of alongside him, which means he's kind of a little bit nervous of the car at this stage. I don't want to push him too much. I'm just going to give him a bit of space and see where he goes to. He's just gone behind this little tree area here. There you can see him through the thicket. Now I wonder where he's going to head from here. I was hoping that he was going to head a little bit more sort of east of where we are and maybe try and see if he finds little Shongile. It would be nice to see the two of them together again. But I don't think he actually knows where he wants to go. He's kind of trotting about everywhere and he's looking into all the trees, and I think he's going to settle there. So let's try and see if we can't get ourselves into a place where we can actually see him. So Kim, you're wondering if Hosana would be making big kills yet? Well, yes indeed. He killed an Impala a few days ago close to Vuyatela camp, and then he's also, we know it's killed 1 or 2 Impalas in Little Gowrie, so he's made quite a number of kills at this stage, and so he's just fine. He'll be making quite large kills. I believe the one kill that he made in Little Gowrie was an adult male Impala, so that's very good for him. And if he's already started to get this technique where he's catching Impalas, he's going to be just fine. So he's big and strong enough now to pull down those sort of sized animals. In comparison to Shongile, who's still a little bit smaller, she struggles a bit to be able to pull down something of that size. So he is just fine, and you can see he looks in perfect condition. He's been without his mom now for it's over 2 months, and yet he's still perfect. He's got healthy body mass. He's not in any way skinny. You can see his neck is growing, so he's doing just fine. Like I say, he's taken to this single life and looking after himself like a duck to water, and he's done really well. So it's good to see that his mom obviously taught him very well. So dear watcher, you're wondering how much longer until he mates? Well, that's dependent on where he ends up and how life goes for Hosana. If he gets pushed out of this area and ends up being a nomadic male for a while, he can go until even 6-7 years old before he's able to mate. But if we look at sort of Quarantine and Kunuma and Shivambalana, they all sort of managed to get a territory fairly young, and we're already mating by about 4.5, 5 years. So he's still got quite a while to go. You must remember that Hosana now is only about, I think he's about just over 16 months, 17 months. I forget where we are now. We're in May, so 17 months. So he's still a young male. He's still got probably about 2 years to go before he's actually big enough to start challenging and take over any mating rights. So it's not going to be any time soon, but we will see where he ends up and how he ends up going, and whether or not he can find himself a territory in this area that he is able to settle quite quickly, or if he's going to have to be quite nomadic and end up quite far away. Now we're going to try and see if I can't reposition so we can see his face without all these big grass stalks. And while we do that, I believe James has got something else that is glistening in the sunshine that he would like to show you.
I do have something else sitting in the sunshine, everybody. It's me. But that's not really what I came here to show you. We came towards the hyena den on Gallagher shortcut, and our progress was arrested somewhat by this bark spider, which is doing precisely what the bark spider yesterday did, and that is build its web during the morning. Very unusual. Now it's gone to the middle, and what's interesting is I did a little bit of reading on the spiders yesterday, and I accused the bark spider yesterday of leaving its web incomplete. You can see that little section there that looks incomplete. But many spiders will leave that gap there purposely. I'm not sure why, but they leave it there as a sort of gap, if you like. And so I think that this bark spider's just completed this web. It is the most wonderful net. Now, there are some very irritated Francolins behind us, and they've been shouting for some time. And I just want to go, I want to reverse again. We do want to go and check out this hyena den again, but I just want to see if there isn't something coming wandering down the road here. We had a very clever thought from somebody yesterday who said, oh, sorry, David, that's not what they said. They said, is it possible that the bark spider is constructing its web now because of the full moon, and so perhaps it's getting a little confused by what's day and what's not? And I thought that was a really good thought. David, is there a leopard coming down the road? I think it's worth just popping up the road there quickly. We will go back in there, although I don't see any hyena tracks around, and I don't want to destroy that web. Right, so we're just going to go to the bend here. We'll switch off and we'll have a listen. I can hear the Francolin. Maybe it was a snook, David. There it is, the Francolin. You should be able to get it now. You see it there? It's just above the bush next to the dead tree. Yep, that's the one. Go up a bit. Left. No, left. Middle of the frame. Up a bit. There you go. I can't see any tracks on the road, and naturally it is now no longer terrified. Could have been a snake, could have been a brown snake eagle flying overhead. There's another Francolin looking chilled to the max over there, Dave. You see it there?
No, I don't.
It's just over there, David. Look where I'm pointing, man. Good. There it is. The Crested Francolin, everybody. One of 4 Francolin species that we get here. Jamie Patterson, unlike me, has managed to find some tracks.
Well, I mean, they're not leopard tracks, and they're not actually the tracks that I've been searching for this morning. But that's the one advantage of walking along a road, is that it gives you a sort of nice up-close and personal view of different types of smaller tracks, especially when it comes to the nocturnal creatures, and especially if you are walking along the road first thing in the morning before anyone else has driven around here. So this particular track is an interesting one, and I'll explain to you exactly why it's so interesting. Because it's a really nice lesson in taking in everything around the track as well. Because tracking is not just about the footprint or the print in the sand, it's about the evidence around it. Now, this particular animal has walked here at night, and we know that just because I can see how fresh and clear the outline is. And it's got a very interesting track. It's the same size as a civet track, but much more elongated, and you can actually see, not very clearly, I'll try and find you a clearer example, but you can actually see where the claws are in its toes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And most importantly, I was always taught, and I know different people have different approaches, the back pad is asymmetrical. So one lobe kind of extends out past the other. And this is a solitary creature. You don't see any sign of any other ones wandering about, and it is in fact a white-tailed mongoose that's walked along this road and wandered up and down. And what's interesting about it is you can learn about the animal's behavior based on their tracks. So if you don't necessarily see the creature, but you observe the way that their tracks go and the way that this mongoose has veered on and off the road, obviously searching for insects as it goes along, that gives you a really nice idea of what this mongoose was doing and how they behave at night. Now, all mongoose have asymmetrical back pads. It's one of those defining features. And when you're looking at something like a dwarf mongoose track, that becomes very important, because a dwarf mongoose track could look exactly like a squirrel track in thick sand. But then again, observing everything around the track as well, you generally don't get 13 squirrels all running together in the same direction and then backwards and forwards and greeting each other in the way that you might with a dwarf mongoose. So that also tells you a great deal, and you can learn about the behavior from the tracks, and you can learn about the tracks from what you know about their behavior. That's just an interesting little lesson. If I find any more interesting tracks, the one thing I haven't found is hyena tracks, which is interesting. Now, Kat, you want to know, how can I tell if a track is fresh? You know, funnily enough, that's one of the reasons why it's important not just to know what a track of an elephant, a lion, and a leopard look like, and why it's important to know some of the smaller things as well, and their behavior. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can tell a track is fresh. One is if you're not sure, particularly in thick sand. Let's go a little bit further ahead to the sun so that I can demonstrate this properly. So here's our mongoose tracks over here. Still walking along the road, or, you know, could just vanish as soon as I try to point one out. The last one I've got is over here. Here's our mongoose tracks, and you can actually, oh, Ferg, you can see the claws really clearly here. There's a little indentation of the claws. So now, we're looking at a type of substrate that the track is in. It's quite sandy, not thick sand, not fine sand, it's somewhere in between. But see how clearly and crisply you can see the outline of the track. How individual toes are really, very clear. Now, after a while, that starts to blur because the wind starts to blow, there's things blowing about. So if I do this, see? That's the track, especially if you know it's a windy day. That's a track that has now become 12 hours old. Admittedly somewhat sped up by me blowing on it. But if you're not sure about how clear a track is going to be in a certain type of sand, stand next to it. So if I stand there, I can see how clearly the outline of the track of my shoe is and how crisp and clear the details are. And that gives me an idea. If I compare it to the track that I'm looking at, it'll give me a nice idea as to how fresh it is. And then there's other little tracks, other little indicators that will tell you how fresh something is. Tracks of a mouse, tracks of a frog, tracks of a bird. anything that crosses over those tracks, if you know how that animal behaves, you can start to gauge. So if I've got a set of leopard tracks walking along a road, and I'm not quite sure how fresh they are, but now I see it's first thing in the morning and there's dove tracks walking over them. I know those doves aren't walking on the road until the sun is out and they can start to forage on the ground. So then those leopard tracks are probably from before the morning, probably from the night before, maybe even older, depending on how old the dove tracks are. So it's a calculation more than anything else. Look at this road network. This is so cool. This is the N1, Ferg. This is definitely the busier highway. That's the N1 over there. That's one of our national motorways for the ants. You can see they've actually dug out a trail. So that's the busiest highway. And then this is the Galuli's interchange over here, where the road networks meet. That's the road. What's the road that leads down to the coast, down to Durban?
N3.
N3, there we go. There goes the N3. And the N12 over there.
Where's the Harry Smith?
Where's the Harry Smith Wimpy?
Yeah, I was going to say Nando's.
Okay, you're more about Nando's. Harry Smith Wimpy's over there. There we go. That's where they've all congregated. That's Bergville. Right, sorry Alice, I got so distracted that I wasn't quite listening to what I was going to do. I think I'm sending you over to James. Let's go and see how his morning is treating him.
Here are some arrow-marked babblers. Trying to think of something else to say about them. They are not babbling, they are hopping. They are very good hoppers, are the arrow-marked babblers. Looking for insects. We'll roll. Oh, there's another one. Good reef, David. Look at that. Our cup. Look at how well it hops. See that? It is an excellent hopper. You can't see its red eyes. It's got very nice red eyes with little yellow bits in the middle. Let's see if we can't get a little bit closer. We found no tracks, I'm afraid. That's okay. It's a glorious morning. We'll just keep heading towards Beefleshoek Dam, where undoubtedly there will be one or two hippo. Did you hear that one? There, they're babbling now, David. Let me move a little bit forward for you. They're in that tree. In the Combretum herreroense tree. Ah, enjoying the sun. Sharpening their beaks, cleaning their beaks. Fishing out the odd insect that's there. There you can, they really have got remarkable eyes. I wasn't being sarcastic about that at all. There, sort of see them there. Yes. Well, that was a nice sighting of arrow-marked babblers, wasn't it, David? Good. Let's continue. So we've come up onto the northern boundary, and if you are perhaps a new viewer, we are unable to go to the left-hand side of your screen. This is where we have to stop, but the animals, of course, can come and go as they please. And I suspect that lion that was very cleverly spotted by the zoomy on the dam wall yesterday evening has probably gone in here, or gone to the south. And Djuma very much at the moment seems to be some kind of... one hesitates to use the term transition zone, but it is... There's a lot of activity from the lions, especially. At night they come on, they sort of shout and scream, and then they back off during the rest of the night. And they go north into Buffelshoek, or they go south into Little Gowrie. There's something on the top of the hill there. But it is a bush, everybody, and a bush is not nearly as important as the first kill of the morning.
A kill that is still touch and go. This is absolutely incredible. The struggle of life and death out here can take the smallest of forms. In this case, the smallest mantis I've ever seen. I think it's a mantis. It's so tiny, I can actually barely focus on it. And it's caught an ant, and the ant is frantically struggling. I can't believe this drama of life and death is playing out on my sleeve. I've never ever seen a mantis this small. Oh, goodness. Hold on. Ferg, it's struggling. The ant is pulling really hard. It almost looks like a really tiny flower mantis, but I don't think so. Please send through your screenshots, because I want to see if one of the other guides has ever seen one of these before, because I haven't. This is such a remarkable creature. This ant has been struggling. I think the struggle's over. I can't really see. Ferg, is it over? Or is that ant still moving?
Still giving it a go.
Still trying to get away. One of those little ants that we were looking at earlier obviously got kidnapped off the highway and is now being consumed by this mantis. Fierce, fierce predators, gripped in its front claws with their jagged edges that when we pick up big mantises, we feel piercing into our skin. And it's now using powerful jaws to bite into the ant itself. And I think that's just... No, it's still going. This poor ant is still alive. Should we sit down, Ferg, so that we're both a bit more... Or at least I'm a bit more stable. I don't want to shake the way through this, but this is so dramatic. I feel as though Ferg and myself should sit down and actually watch it. This is the prettiest mantis I've ever seen. And I've seen some pretty mantises. Okay, I'll just keep my wrist angled at a really beautiful angle. It's really comfy. Look at this. You'll have to let me know what's going on there, because I can't see now. I've got the back end of the mantis. This is so cool. Look at it. Black head, white body, upturned abdomen, and one very desperate ant that is fighting for its life. At one point, I really thought it was going to get away. I really, really did. It was so close, and the mantis was desperately grappling with it and grasping at it. And it almost got half of its body free. And ants, of course, are unbelievably strong for their body size, but so are mantises. Is this ant still struggling? Now, Siberia Zumi, you say that it is a boxer mantis. A boxer mantis. What a brilliant name. Because they do really box, don't they? With those powerful front legs. I wish it would end this poor ant's experience. I wish I could have seen the moment when this mantis grabbed this ant. It would have been amazing to witness. These are the kind of things that you see on walk that you don't ever spot from a vehicle. If you were able to spot this from a vehicle, you'd be some kind of superhero. You'd have some kind of extra special vision. It's tiny. It's the size of a grass seed. This is awesome. My stomach's rumbling away, which is terrible because it's not the sight of the mantis eating an ant is making me particularly hungry.
You have a taste for ants, yeah?
I can't say I have a taste for ants. Speak to James about having a taste for ants. He understands maybe better. I haven't been all that into ants for most of my life. Can't speak for my early childhood. It's amazing its antenna fluttering away like that. That's what also fascinates me. What is it? Why are they constantly moving like that? What vibrations are they picking up? Is it because I'm speaking around it? I think that's it. I think the ant is dead. I think that's the end of the... No, I think I can still see the ant's leg moving. A long and protracted struggle.
I think Mantis is pretty... He's satisfied he's done the job.
He does look satisfied that he's done the job. Now it's breakfast time. The ant is twitching. The ant is twitching, but also bear in mind that the structure of insects' bodies are different. So they don't have... Yes, they have a central ganglion around their face, but they don't have a brain like we have a brain. And they have ganglions, so a collection of nerves all the way along their bodies. So even when an insect is technically dead, the sort of the functioning parts of it around its face are dead and gone, the rest of the body could still transmit nerve impulses, which is one of the reasons why if a mantis is mating, and of course they have that famous reputation for killing their mates, the females often eat the male and eat it head first. But that's one of the reasons why the male can continue to mate with the female without his head. Nearly said something terrible. Caught myself in time. Chris, it's entirely possible that the ant was carrying an egg sac. I have seen a few ants this morning already carrying egg sacs. So it's entirely possible. I haven't had a chance to actually properly look, and bear in mind I'm looking at it from a different perspective to you. But it's there's distinct possibility that that's what it was doing. I'll have a look around where I found them. Because they were initially on a blade of grass, and then I thought that I'd lost them and then discovered it on my sleeve. So I'll have a look around and see if there's any other ants. Ants? There's definitely no ants here. Any other ants moving eggs around. That would also make it more vulnerable to an attack of a mantis. And of course for the mantis, that's a 2-for-1 deal. Because the egg carries plenty of nutrition as well. This is crazy. The mantis looks pretty happy. And is now feeding. You can even see those powerful front legs. Now, Megan, you want to know if it poisoned the ant at all. No, it didn't. There's no poison involved. This was pure physical crushing, pure physical strength. It grabbed it with its front legs, which are phenomenally strong and jagged on the inside, and then it basically crushed its head and crushed its body with its jaws. I think this is the stablest I've ever been. Glad I didn't have too much coffee this morning. Created a tripod with my own elbow. I want to watch too. I want to see what you're seeing. I want to see it close up. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Oh, except the mantis is now carrying off its prize. While we have the end point of our kill and time to feed, let's go and find out whether Hosana's done any more hunting.
Well, we haven't seen him get anywhere near anything just yet. He is definitely watching and listening and looking around, but so far no luck for little Hosana. He's got no meal to show for anything. He's been chased around by a few birds, and you can hear the rollers are squeaking at him, and a few Francolins have shouted at him, but other than that, he's been... And now the hornbills are also going. But other than that, he's just been sort of very circumspect, and he's been walking around and listening and looking and smelling and just trying to kind of see what's going on around him. He hasn't really bumped into anything of substance, and so I'm sure as time goes and he starts to find what he's looking for, if he sees maybe some Impalas or a Duiker or something like that, then he will definitely start going into a lot more of a hunting mode. Earlier he was trying to stalk some Francolins, but got hopelessly nowhere near them. They were far and they saw him, and lots of squawking and squeaking as he bounded after them, but really had no shot. But you can see how difficult they can be to find. Look at that camouflage there. Absolutely amazing. So Douglas, you're wondering how good a leopard's eyesight is. Well, it's very good. It's much like us. They have binocular vision, so the eyes are in the front of the head, and they have very large eyes, so they're able to pull in a lot of light, which means that they see very, very well at night, and their eyesight is definitely better than what ours is. So they don't see in nearly the same spectrum of colors, though, because they've sacrificed cells in their eyes to be able to see better at night. So we have two types of cells in our eyes. We have rods and cones, and cones are the color cells, so those are the cells that will pick up color, and the rods are light cells. And so as these animals move, well, these leopards and us, and we have sort of balances of the two. With leopards and lions, they tend to have very, very, very few cone cells, and that ends up with them being able to see much better at night, but not so well well, not so well in terms of color. Now we're going to try and see if we can't find a better place to park. As you can see, it's quite dense and thick behind me here. And while we do that, let's go and see what James is up to with some rather large aquatic animals.
Hello everybody, sorry, David and I were just having a conversation because he was waving at the screen, but he was actually just trying to remove a spider web, which would have obscured your view of the hippopotami here at Buffelshoek Dam. Now, I've come to Buffelshoek Dam not so much to see these hippo, because I feel like we've sort of done these hippo to death over the last few days, but because there were reports, of course, from Herberto yesterday, and David reminded me of these, of a mating pair of leopards, well, the tracks anyway, around this area. And so it's worth us coming around, seeing if we can hear the terrifying sound of leopards in flagrante delicto. But I hear nothing like that. I hear just the sweet trilling noises of robins in the distance, a couple of canaries, and a few... what else? A couple of three-banded plovers. Now, there is a three-banded plover on the ground there. That is the three-banded plover. Now, there are alarm-calling impala down to the south of the reserve, which was, of course, nowhere near where we are. And they're going to just check if Shongile isn't in that area. So just in case they don't find her, I thought I must just give you that update. So it looks like she is around. David, quickly, there's a huge amount of action going on. A hippo just stuck its back out of the water. Yo! Do people say this in other parts of the world? Do people go, shoo? Or is it a South African thing? Shoo! What a lot of action. It means, my goodness. Good gracious me. Now, there have been reports of mating hippopotami in this dam. And certainly that might be what's going on here. But you know, it's very difficult to tell, of course, on account of them being under the water. And also very difficult to tell who's male and who's female. And I think that one, the male, if it is a male behind there, is just a little bit nervous. And Jamie yesterday called a terrapin a hippo, and I thought that was quite funny. But if you can see how that mistake was made, if you go up to the one behind there and you just see that little bit of something sticking up and the light is reflecting off the surface of the water, it's very easy to call a hippopotamus a terrapin, or indeed a crocodile. I'm just going to quickly scan the shores of the dam, and then we're going to move on. I don't see the leopards. And as Jamie has just pointed out, and she's absolutely correct, and I mean this is the least of the misinformation I've given. She said, I once called a hippo skull, at least a warthog skull, a hippo skull. I absolutely did. It was one of the more embarrassing moments of my life. And it was, you know, we try not to embarrass each other, well, sort of. And Brent was left with no option but to embarrass me live, because it was such a ridiculous untruth that I had told by mistake that he was left with no option but to correct me. So, yes, she makes a very good point there. You know, David, as the old saying goes, I think it was, I think it may have been the good Lord himself who said this. He said, you know, judge not the speck in someone else's eye when you have a plank in your own. Yes? And there is a large plank in my eye. Planks, but rather of leopards and where we might find them. Ooh, what is that? Is it a Dwarf? I think it is a Dwarf. It is a Dwarf. Emerald spotted wood Dwarf. Now I think our signal is not good, so we're going to move along here, see if we can find tracks of the mating pair. In the meantime, Tristan is still with the little chief.
So, we're just trying to crash through the bush a little bit to try and catch up with Hosana, who's now run up onto a termite mound. So he's found himself a beautiful spot with beautiful morning light, and it really is a spectacular scene to see him up on his termite mound. So there he is. And he's still now facing south of us, and I'm sure that's because there were impalas that were alarm calling just to the south of us, and we had Shongile's tracks a little bit earlier right where we are now, so I wonder if she's not around here as well. Wouldn't it be fantastic to see the two of them come together? But isn't that beautiful? In amongst the long grass of the termite mound, he just looks so elegant up there. You can see he's watching the comings and goings of some of the other vehicles and just seeing what's happening. Now I'm quite surprised. He walked straight past a male impala. He didn't even blink at it. I don't know if he spotted it, but he seems to be more enthralled with these impalas that were alarm calling south of us. So I wonder if he knows that there's maybe something else afoot and maybe another leopard is close by and in this area, and that's why he's kind of checking around and seeing and facing in that direction. You can see his ears are moving around quite a bit. He's trying to work out exactly what's going on and whether or not it would be safe for him to head in that area. Now, like I say, the tracks that I did have were for a female leopard, which would have been pretty much, I'm sure, for Shongile. They were small tracks, so I'm sure it's his sister that's been causing the noise to be made. Isn't he beautiful? Up on his mound. You are looking very regal, my boy. You're starting to grow and fit into those ears and paws and body. And I was looking at his tracks just now when we were crossing the road, because often with tracks and tracking, we find tracks very regularly, and it's difficult to know exactly who it is unless you can actually see them putting their foot down and you then look at the track quite carefully. And he's just seeing how big his foot actually is. It's quite amazing. It's not too far behind Tingana these days. He still doesn't quite have the same size foot, but he's getting there. It's definitely gotten much bigger, and his tracks do now resemble a male leopard rather than a sort of big female. So Kirk, he's in Tingana's territory. That's where he moves around. Tingana was what we think fathered these cubs, and so he moves around within that territory, because when he was a tiny cub, this would have been where Karula hung around, and Tingana would have made sure that he protected this area so that these cubs would be protected. So that's where he is now. We do sometimes find that Mvula will move around in these areas, but he's no longer really a territorial male. He's now nomadic, so it's more Tingana's territory than anything else. And Hosana hasn't drifted outside of that yet. We've only really seen him around these sort of natal areas where he was born. He hasn't started making any sort of progress and moving out and around and into other areas, and that's very, very important that he doesn't, because at the age that he is, he can't defend himself against a really big male. He doesn't have the techniques, he doesn't have the experience, he also just doesn't have the size, and so he needs to stay in this area where kind of Tingana knows him and won't see him as too much of a threat just yet, but will still sort of provide some sort of protection by being able to push other leopards away, and Hosana can then fly under the radar. And that's why you'll find that he won't vocalize, he won't scent mark. If he does urinate, it will just be in a bush somewhere. He's not going to actually use his back legs and actually scrape and urinate like that. So he's going to try and fly under the radar as much as possible until he gets a little bit older, until he gets to about 4 or 5 years old, and that's when he'll start to then actually push for dominance and mating. But isn't that beautiful with all the grass? Absolutely amazing.